Hi, my name is Ridge. I'm a loan officer here, and I'll end up handling a lot of your files and kind of helping explain things if you have questions. The one I'm going to be talking about today is a very important part of mortgages called the loan estimates and the closing disclosures. Loan estimates and closing disclosures are very similar. They're going to be structured very similar. The biggest difference between them to keep in mind is the loan estimate is more upfront. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an estimate of what your total fees are going to be and monthly payment. The closing disclosure is a disclosure that's given to you a few days at least prior to closing and will continue to be balanced in and dialed closer to what your actual fees and your actual monthly payment are going to be as we get closer to the closing process. Now, the loan estimate and the closing disclosure, it looks very confusing with all sorts of different sections, so I kind of want to go through some of these different sections and explain what these fees are and where they all come from. You'll see on here, on both the loan estimate and on the closing disclosure, there are sections A through L. Let's go through them section by section and I can kind of explain a couple of things. Section A talks about origination charges. Now on here, one advantage of going with Summit Home Loans is we have no processing and no origination fees. The only real origination charges that you're going to see on here is there's an underwriting fee of generally around $1,000. This is where you'll see any fees if you decided to buy the rate down. Section B talks about services that you did not shop for. This is going to be where we see things like credit report fees, appraisal fees, and different things that we put into that section that you don't actively go out and be able to choose who you're going to use for that. Section C is going to be services that you did shop for. This is where your title insurance policy is going to be. This title insurance policy generally covers all of the things that come with title, the title insurance itself, as well as any of the preparation fees they have and their actual settlement or closing fee. Generally, this will end up being, depending on the size of your home, anywhere from around $1,500 to $2,500. Section D adds all of these numbers together and it separates the loan estimate and the closing disclosure in the first section. This is called the total loan costs right up front. Any of the sections below this get classified as other costs. Now the other big ones that I want you to look at on here is in section E, it has the fees associated with recording with the government. Usually this ends up being around $80, once for recording the deed and once for recording with the mortgage. The next big section to keep in mind is prepaids, section F. Prepaids generally end up being any of three things. The first is if you choose to have your insurance escrowed, this is where your insurance policy is going to be paid upfront for the full year. They're going to pay for your insurance policy as well as you're going to pay the prepaid interest from whatever day you close and fund through the end of that month. Now, one thing to keep in mind when closing a mortgage, if you were to close in the middle of that month, let's say, for example, you close on the 15th, you will pay the per day interest from the 16th through the end of the month. With that being said though, you will skip one mortgage payment. For example, if I were to close my loan in November, I would not make my first mortgage payment until January 1st. Next section you'll see is section G. This is where they're going to collect all the fees to fund your escrow account. This escrow account is used to pay your taxes and insurance every year, and it is included in your monthly payment if you choose to do so, making it so that you don't have to worry about paying your taxes and insurance outside of the mortgage. Usually, the lender is going to keep at least a couple months of buffer for both your taxes and your insurance for if those fees ever end up going up. How much they collect is going to be different based on the time of year, but generally towards the end of the year they will collect more. You will also be credited any of the time that you weren't living in the home back from the sellers of the home. If it's a new build, it's a little bit different where you're credited based on what the property was. Now I know this was a lot of information and it's all a little bit complicated and a lot of different sections to go through. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your loan officer or call Summit Home Loans in general, and one of us would be happy to go through your loan estimate and your closing disclosure with you, item by item and line by line, to make sure that you understand the entire process. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.